If you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications because today's story is one you won't forget. I still remember the sound. 3 slow knocks. Not loud. Not angry. Just deliberate. The kind of knock that instantly makes your stomach drop because you know exactly who is standing outside. My landlord. And I was 2 months behind on rent. The clock on my microwave read 11:47 p.m. Nobody visits at that hour with good news. I froze in the middle of my tiny apartment kitchen, holding a cup of instant noodles that had become my dinner more nights than I wanted to admit. The knock came again. 3 times. Slow. Patient. Certain. I closed my eyes. Maybe if I stayed quiet he'd think I wasn't home. Then my phone buzzed. A text message. My heart nearly stopped. Olivia, I know you're home. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. We need to talk. My hand started shaking. I already knew what he wanted. The rent. What else could it be? I was 28 years old, working 2 jobs, drowning in bills, trying to rebuild a life that had fallen apart 6 months earlier. And every month felt harder than the last. Especially after what Ethan had done. Ethan. Even hearing his name in my head felt like reopening a wound. For 4 years I believed I would marry him. 4 years. For birthdays. For Christmases. 4 years of plans. Dreams. Promises. Then one random Tuesday afternoon, I came home early from work and discovered that the future I imagined didn't exist. Because Ethan wasn't alone. He was with someone else. In our apartment. In our bed. I can still remember the sound of my keys hitting the floor. The silence afterward. The look on his face. Not guilt. Not shame. Just surprise that he'd been caught. As if the betrayal itself wasn't the problem. Getting caught was. That moment changed everything. I moved out. Lost most of my savings. Started over. And somehow ended up in the cheapest apartment I could find. Apartment 3B. Old building. Leaky pipes. Paper-thin walls. And a landlord named Noah Bennett. First, Noah terrified me. He was tall. Quiet. Serious. The kind of man who looked intimidating even when he wasn't trying. He rarely smiled. Rarely talked. Collected rent. Fixed problems. Disappeared. Simple. Professional. At least that's what I thought. Until that night. The night my rent was late. The night everything changed. Another knock. I took a deep breath. Then opened the door. Noah stood there. Dark jacket. Rain on his shoulders. Hands in his pockets. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then he looked at me. Really looked at me. And something about his expression felt different. Not angry. Not frustrated. Concerned. You haven't been sleeping. I blinked. What? His eyes moved toward the dark circles under mine. You look exhausted. I stared. Of all the things he could have said, that wasn't one of them. I forced a nervous laugh. I'm sorry about the rent. His expression didn't change. I know. I'll have it soon. I know. Just give me another week. Again. I know. I frowned. Something felt strange. Almost wrong. Why wasn't he angry? Why wasn't he threatening eviction? Why wasn't he demanding payment? Instead, he glanced past me into the apartment. Then back at me. Have you eaten today? My jaw nearly dropped. What? Have you eaten? For a second I thought he was joking. But Noah never joked. Not once in 6 months. I crossed my arms. Why are you asking me that? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the instant noodles sitting on my counter. Then his gaze returned to me. And somehow that felt worse. Because I suddenly realized he knew exactly how bad things had gotten. The embarrassment hit me instantly. I hated pity. More than anything. And right then it felt like pity. I'm fine, I said. He nodded slowly. No. His voice was calm. Gentle. You aren't. Something inside me cracked. Just a little. Because nobody had asked if I was okay in a very long time. Not really. Everyone asked how work was. How life was. How things were going. But nobody looked directly into my eyes and said, you aren't okay. Except Noah. And for some reason that scared me more than eviction. I looked away first. I'll get your money. I didn't come for money. The words landed like thunder. I looked back at him. What? I didn't come for rent. My heartbeat quickened. Then why was he here? Noah seemed to hesitate, like he was debating something. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to me. I stared, confused. What's this? Open it. I slowly took the envelope, my hands trembling. Inside was a check. $5,000. I nearly dropped it. What is this? His voice remained calm. A loan. I stared at him, certain I'd heard wrong. A loan. Yes. I looked from the check to him, then back again. Nothing made sense. Why would you do this? His answer came immediately. Because you need help. I couldn't breathe. Nobody helped anymore. Not after Ethan. Not after everything. People disappeared when life got difficult. That was the lesson I'd learned. Friends drifted away. Family offered advice instead of support. And strangers certainly didn't hand you $5,000. Yet here Noah stood, offering exactly that, without asking for anything. Or so I thought, because what happened next would completely change my life and reveal a secret I never saw coming. A secret that connected Noah to me long before I ever rented apartment 3B. A secret hidden for more than 20 years. And the moment I learned the truth, everything I believed about my past shattered, including who I really was. But at that moment, standing in my doorway, I knew none of that. I only knew one thing. My landlord wasn't acting like a landlord. And for the first time since Ethan broke my heart, someone was looking at me like I mattered. I should have closed the door. I should have said no. I should have walked away. Instead, I invited him inside. And that was the beginning of everything. The moment Noah stepped into my apartment, I regretted it. Not because I was afraid of him, because I was afraid of myself. For 6 months, I'd carefully built walls around my heart. Walls made of disappointment. Walls made of betrayal. Walls made of all the promises Ethan had broken. And now, somehow, my landlord was standing in the middle of my living room, looking completely out of place. The apartment was embarrassing. Tiny. Crowded. A couch with a tear in one armrest. Second-hand furniture. Bills stacked on the kitchen counter. The kind of place that silently announced to everyone that life hadn't gone according to plan. I wanted to apologize for it. Instead, I stood there awkwardly while Noah looked around. Not judging. Just observing. That somehow made it worse. Sorry about the mess, I finally said. It looks lived in. I laughed. For the first time in weeks. A real laugh. Small. But real. Noah noticed. His eyes softened slightly. And suddenly I became very aware of how close he was standing. I quickly looked away. Bad idea. Very bad idea. The last thing I needed was developing feelings for my landlord. Especially one who was being unusually kind. Kindness can be dangerous when you're lonely. Feels a lot like love. So, I said carefully, about this check. Noah sat down across from me. I meant what I said. I stared at him. You barely know me. A strange expression crossed his face, almost like guilt. Then it disappeared. You'd be surprised. That answer sent a chill down my spine. What does that mean? For a second, I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he leaned back. How long were you with Ethan? I froze. My stomach tightened instantly. How do you know his name? Noah looked away. And that was the first time I'd ever seen him uncomfortable. I've heard you talking on the phone. I relaxed slightly. That made sense. The walls were thin. Too thin. Still, something felt off. For years. His eyes returned to mine. And he cheated. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. Yes. Noah nodded once. His jaw tightened, almost as if he personally hated hearing it. Then he surprised me again. He was an idiot. I blinked. What? He was an idiot. My heart skipped unexpectedly. Noah wasn't saying it because he was trying to flirt. He genuinely believed it. There was something almost protective in his voice. Something sincere. And after months of blaming myself, hearing someone say those words mattered more than I wanted to admit. The conversation continued longer than I expected. Minutes became an hour. Then 2. Somehow we talked about everything. Work. Life. Dreams. Mistakes. For the first time since my breakup, I wasn't pretending to be okay. And Noah wasn't trying to fix me. He just listened. That was different. Most people hear your pain and immediately search for solutions. Noah simply sat there, present, patient, listening. Felt strangely intimate. More intimate than some conversations I'd had during 4 years with Ethan. Around 2 in the morning, Noah finally stood. "You should sleep." I nodded. "You too." He moved toward the door, then stopped, as if debating something. Finally he turned around. "Olivia." "Yeah." His expression became serious. "If you ever need help." He hesitated. "Call me." Something fluttered inside my chest. I hated it, because I knew exactly what it was. Hope. And hope is dangerous, especially after heartbreak. The next morning I woke up convinced the entire night had been strange, maybe even inappropriate. I decided I'd repay Noah immediately, create distance, return everything to normal, simple, professional, safe. Unfortunately, life had other plans. Around noon my phone rang. The caller ID showed my younger sister, Emma. I answered immediately. "Hey." Silence. Then crying. My stomach dropped. "Emma." Her voice shook. Mom collapsed. Everything inside me froze. "What?" "She's in the hospital." 2 hours later I was sitting in a hospital waiting room, terrified. Emma sat beside me, red-eyed, exhausted. The doctor said Mom would recover. But stress had triggered serious complications. Stress. The word echoed in my head, because I knew exactly what had caused it. Money, bills, problems. The same things crushing everyone else. I rubbed my face, trying not to cry. Then I noticed someone entering the waiting room. My breath caught. Noah. For a second I genuinely thought I was imagining him. But there he was, walking toward me, concern written across his face. I stood immediately. "How did you know?" His answer came too fast. "Emma called." I looked at my sister. She looked confused. "I don't have his number." Silence. A very strange silence. Noah stopped walking. His expression changed. Just for a second. But I saw it. And suddenly every instinct I had started screaming. Something wasn't right. That evening Mom woke up. Weak but smiling. The relief was overwhelming. I almost cried. Then something happened that made no sense. Mom looked at Noah. Really looked at him. And her face turned completely white. The smile disappeared. The color drained from her cheeks. Fear appeared in her eyes. Real fear. Noah froze too. Neither of them spoke. But something passed between them. Recognition. History. A secret. I felt it instantly. "Mom." She didn't answer. Her eyes remained locked on Noah. The room suddenly felt smaller. He looked uncomfortable. She looked terrified. And I stood in the middle completely confused. Finally Mom whispered 3 words. Words that changed everything. "Noah. It's you." The room went silent. I stared at her. Then at him. Neither looked surprised. Which meant they knew each other. The question was how. And why had they hidden it? Noah slowly stepped forward. His voice barely above a whisper. "Hello, Claire." My heart stopped. He knew my mother. Not casually. Not accidentally. Personally. Deeply. And judging by the look on Mom's face, this wasn't a happy reunion. That night, after Noah left, I demanded answers. "What was that?" Mom looked away. "Noah used to know our family." My stomach twisted. "How?" Silence. Too much silence. Then she whispered. "Before you were born." I frowned. What does that mean? Again she hesitated. Again that fear appeared. Finally she looked directly at me, tears forming in her eyes. "Olivia." Her voice broke. "There are things about your father you don't know." The room began spinning. My father had died when I was 12. At least that's what I'd always been told. But suddenly Mom looked like someone carrying a burden she'd hidden for decades. And for the first time in my life, I realized there might be another story. A darker story. A story connected to Noah. A story that somehow involved me. What I didn't know was that the truth would destroy everything I believed about my family. And reveal a betrayal far worse than Ethan's affair. A betrayal that had been hidden for more than 20 years. And at the center of it all was Noah, the man I was trying very hard not to fall in love with. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of my mother's health. Not because of the unpaid rent. Not even because Noah somehow appeared at the hospital before anyone could have told him what happened. I couldn't sleep because of the look on my mother's face. Fear. Pure fear. The kind that doesn't come from seeing someone you dislike. The kind that comes from seeing someone who knows the truth. And whatever truth Noah knew, my mother had spent years hiding it. The next morning I arrived at the hospital before sunrise. Mom was already awake, sitting quietly by the window, watching the city wake up. For a few seconds I simply stood there, studying her. My entire life she'd been the strongest person I knew. The woman who worked double shifts when money was tight. The woman who never complained. The woman who sacrificed everything for Emma and me. But now she looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone carrying a secret that had finally become too heavy. Mom. She turned slowly. Her eyes were red. Like she hadn't slept either. We need to talk. She nodded. Almost as if she'd known this moment was coming. Maybe she had. Maybe she'd been waiting years for it. I sat beside her. Neither of us spoke at first. Finally I broke the silence. Who is Noah? Her eyes closed. And I immediately knew this was bigger than I imagined. When she opened them again, tears were forming. Before I answer that, she swallowed hard. I need to tell you something about your father. My heart tightened. Growing up, my father had always been a mystery. He died when I was 12. Or at least that's what I believed. Mom rarely talked about him. Whenever Emma or I asked questions, she'd become quiet, sad, distant. So eventually we stopped asking. Children learn quickly which subjects hurt the people they love. But now those unanswered questions were finally catching up to us. Your father wasn't the man you thought he was. I frowned. What does that mean? Mom stared out the window. He wasn't a bad man. Her voice trembled. But he wasn't faithful. The words hit like a punch. Suddenly Ethan flashed through my mind. The betrayal. The lies. The humiliation. No. Mom nodded slowly. Yes. I couldn't believe it. The father I'd spent years missing. The father I'd imagined as some perfect husband and father. The father whose picture sat in my bedroom for years. He had cheated. And apparently not just once. Because Mom's expression suggested something much worse. What happened? She looked down at her hands. Then whispered. He had another family. The room disappeared around me. For several seconds I couldn't even breathe. Another family. My father. No. Impossible. Felt impossible. But deep down, I already knew it was true. Because suddenly so many things made sense. The missing details. The unanswered questions. The strange sadness Mom carried. The way she always changed the subject. My entire childhood had been built around a story that wasn't real. Who was she? Mom looked away. I don't know everything. You must know something. Silence. Then, her name was Rebecca. The name meant nothing to me. Yet somehow it felt important. Dangerous. Like the first piece of a puzzle I wasn't ready to solve. I rubbed my forehead, trying to process everything. Then another question appeared. The question I was almost afraid to ask. What does this have to do with Noah? Mom's entire body became tense. And that's when I knew. Whatever came next was worse. Much worse. The hospital room suddenly felt too small. Too quiet. Too heavy. Mom looked at me. Really looked at me. Like she was seeing her daughter for the first time. Then she whispered. Noah is Rebecca's son. I stared at her. The words didn't register immediately. My brain simply refused to process them. Then reality crashed into me. Rebecca. The woman my father had another family with. Noah. Her son. Which meant, no. I shook my head, trying to reject the conclusion. But it was already there. Already impossible to ignore. My voice barely worked. You mean? Mom nodded. Tears falling now. Yes. I felt sick. Noah is your brother. The world stopped. Every sound disappeared. Every thought shattered. Brother. The word echoed endlessly. Brother, brother, brother. The man I'd been slowly trusting. The man who appeared whenever I needed help. The man who looked at me differently than everyone else. The man I was starting to feel something for. My brother. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't move. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away instinctively. Not because I was angry. Because I felt like I was falling. And nothing around me was real anymore. Hours later, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment. The same apartment. The same couch. The same walls. But nothing felt familiar. Nothing felt safe. Because everything had changed. I thought about Noah. Every conversation. Every moment. Every smile. Every look. And suddenly all of it felt different. Rewritten. Reframed. Had he known? The question haunted me. Had he known from the beginning? Was that why he helped me? Was that why he cared? Was that why he offered money? Because he wasn't helping a tenant. He was helping family. A sister who didn't know she was his sister. The thought broke my heart for reasons I couldn't explain. A knock interrupted my thoughts. 3 slow knocks. The same as before. I already knew who it was. Noah. My pulse accelerated. For a moment I considered pretending I wasn't home. But that wouldn't change reality. Nothing could. Slowly I opened the door. There he stood. And for the first time, I noticed something I'd somehow missed. The eyes. We had the same eyes. Not identical, but similar. Enough that once you saw it you couldn't unsee it. Noah knew immediately. He saw the answer on my face. He understood. Mom had told me. The silence between us confirmed it. Finally he spoke. Olivia. His voice sounded broken. And suddenly I realized something. He wasn't calm. He wasn't composed. He was terrified. You knew. The accusation left my mouth before I could stop it. Noah closed his eyes. Yes. The single word hit harder than I expected. Because part of me hoped he would deny it. Part of me hoped there was some misunderstanding. But there wasn't. He knew. All along. How long? His answer came quietly. 3 years. I felt anger rise instantly. 3 years. He nodded. 3 years. I couldn't believe it. I'd lived in his building. Talked to him. Trusted him. And he'd never told me. Not once. Why? The question sounded more painful than angry. Maybe because it was. Noah looked down. Then back at me. And what I saw in his eyes surprised me. Regret. Deep regret. I wanted to tell you. Then why didn't you? His jaw tightened. Because your mother asked me not to. That stopped me. Completely. I hadn't expected that. You talked to my mother. Years ago. I stared. Trying to understand. Trying to fit the pieces together. But there were too many. Too many lies. Too many secrets. Too many missing years. Then Noah said something unexpected. Something that changed everything again. I didn't buy this building by accident. I froze. What? His expression remained serious. I bought it because you lived here. The words landed like thunder. For several seconds I simply stared at him. Unable to speak. Unable to process. Surely I'd heard wrong. You what? Noah looked away briefly. Almost embarrassed. Then he met my eyes again. I wanted to make sure you were okay. My heart skipped. Not romantically. Emotionally. Because nobody had ever said something like that to me before. Not without wanting something in return. Not without conditions. Not without hidden motives. Yet Noah's voice carried only sincerity. Nothing else. Old letters. Old records. His voice became almost a whisper. Olivia. My stomach tightened. What? Noah looked directly into my eyes. And what he said next shattered everything all over again. There's one problem with your mother's story. I frowned. What problem? His voice broke. The DNA test. Every muscle in my body went rigid. What DNA test? Noah took a slow breath. Then spoke the words that changed my life forever. The man you call your father. He hesitated. Wasn't your biological father. Silence. Absolute silence. My heartbeat thundered inside my ears. No. Noah's expression said otherwise. Yes. I stared at him. Unable to move. unable to think, unable to understand. If my father wasn't my father, then who was? And why had everyone lied? What I didn't know yet was that the answer would reveal a second betrayal, one even bigger than the first. A betrayal involving my mother, a betrayal involving Noah's family, and a secret love story buried for nearly 30 years. A secret that would completely change who I was, and who Noah really was. I didn't sleep after Noah's words. The man you call your father wasn't your biological father. Those words kept repeating in my mind like a broken record. Again, and again, and again. By morning I wasn't sure what was real anymore. When I opened my eyes, I was still sitting on my couch. Same apartment. Same silence. But I didn't feel like the same person. Because nothing in my life made sense anymore. Not my father. Not my mother. Not Noah. Not even myself. A soft knock came at the door. Not 3 slow knocks this time. Just one. Careful. Controlled. I already knew it was him. I opened the door. Noah stood there again. But this time he looked different. Tired. Like he hadn't slept in days. Like he was carrying something heavier than guilt. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He sat down on the edge of my couch. For a long time neither of us spoke. Finally I broke the silence. "Tell me everything." Noah nodded slowly. "I should have done that a long time ago." My fingers tightened. "Then start now." He took a deep breath. And everything began to fall apart again. "Your mother. Claire wasn't honest about everything," he said. I didn't interrupt. "I didn't just know your father," Noah continued. "I knew him well." My heart tightened. He was my biological father too. The room went cold. I froze. "But you said—" "I know what I said before," Noah interrupted gently. "I said we were siblings because that's what I believed for most of my life." He looked down. "But it was never true." My brain couldn't keep up. "Then what is the truth?" I whispered. Noah looked at me. And what he said next changed everything again. "Your mother and my father had a relationship," he said. "But it ended before I was born." He paused. "Then she met the man you called your father, and married him." I shook my head. "That still doesn't explain." "I know," Noah said softly. "That's because the lie didn't come from them alone." Silence. Heavy. Waiting. "Noah, just say it," I whispered. He finally looked directly at me. And his next words hit like a storm. "There was a third person involved." My breath stopped. "Someone who wanted your mother gone from his life forever." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Noah leaned forward slightly. "Your mother wasn't just hiding the past. She was protecting you from it." My heart pounded. "Protecting me from who?" Noah's voice dropped. "From the man who tried to erase your existence." A cold shiver ran through me. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," Noah said. Then he pulled out an old envelope from his jacket. Faded. Yellowed. Years old. "This is what I found when I investigated your father's records." My hand shook as I took it. Inside were documents. Photos. And one name repeated again and again. A name I had never heard before. Daniel Hayes. Noah watched me carefully. "That's your biological father," he said. I stared at the name, trying to feel something. Anything. But all I felt was emptiness. "Where is he now?" I asked quietly. Noah didn't answer immediately. That silence told me everything. Finally, he said, "He died 5 years ago." My knees weakened. I sat down. My entire life had just shifted again. But something still didn't add up. If he died, then why hide it? Noah's expression tightened. "Because someone didn't want you to inherit anything from him." My stomach dropped. "Something." Noah nodded. "Your father wasn't poor, Olivia." He paused. "He was extremely wealthy." The room spun. "That's impossible." "It's true," Noah said firmly. "And when he died, everything legally should have gone to you." My voice cracked. "Then what happened?" Noah's jaw tightened. "Someone forged documents." My breath stopped. "And erased your identity from the will." The silence that followed was suffocating. My whole life, struggles, rent, pain, all of it, while something was taken from me before I was even old enough to understand. And my mother? I asked finally. Noah looked away. She tried to fight it. My heart clenched. But she was threatened. I froze. Threatened by who? Noah looked at me again. And this time his voice was colder. By the same man who destroyed your father's legacy. The name came out like poison. Richard Hale. I had never heard it before. But I would never forget it again. Noah stood up slowly. And that's why I bought the building. I blinked. What? He looked at me. Not as a landlord. Not as a stranger. Not even as a brother. But as someone carrying years of silent protection. I needed to find you, he said. Before he did. My throat tightened. So everything, the rent, the money, the help. Noah nodded once. It was never about rent. He paused. It was about keeping you alive long enough to know the truth. I couldn't speak. Everything inside me was breaking. But something else was rising too. Something unfamiliar. Trust. And something more dangerous. Emotion. I whispered. You really watched over me all this time. Noah hesitated. Then nodded. Yes. A long silence passed. Then he added quietly. Even when I shouldn't have. My heart tightened at those words. Because I understood what he meant. The line that should have existed between us was gone. Not because of blood, but because of everything we'd lived through. Everything we'd survived. Everything we now knew. For the first time I looked at Noah differently. Not as a landlord. Not as a mystery. But as someone who had been silently protecting me from a world I didn't even know was dangerous. And in that moment, my phone rang. Unknown number. Noah's expression changed instantly. Don't answer it, he said sharply. But I already had. A voice came through. Cold. Calm. Familiar in a way I didn't understand. Olivia Hayes. My blood ran cold. The name I had just learned. You finally found out. Noah grabbed the phone. But the call continued. And now the real story begins. The line went dead. Silence filled the room. Noah looked at me. And for the first time, he looked afraid. Not for himself. For me. Because whoever that voice belonged to knew exactly who I was. And was coming back to finish what they started. Noah stepped closer. Listen to me, he said firmly. You are not safe anymore. I nodded slowly. For once. I didn't argue. Because I finally understood. My life wasn't a broken love story. It was a buried one. Full of lies. Secrets. And a past that refused to stay dead. Noah was the only truth I had left. He looked at me for a long moment. Then quietly said, no matter what happens, I won't let anyone erase you again. I believed him. And that scared me more than anything. Because for the first time, I realized I wasn't just surviving my past. I was about to face it. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching this emotional story. Don't forget to like this video if you felt the story. Subscribe for more powerful emotional and true style storytelling. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. Comment below. Did you expect Noah's truth? Or did it shock you? See you in the next story.